Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Anne Duncan. Queen Elizabeth has died. It was announced this evening that Queen Elizabeth has died at 96. Earlier this afternoon, a Buckingham Palace spokesperson has said that she was under medical supervision at Balmoral after doctors became concerned for her health. The Queen Elizabeth's family travelled to Balmoral to be with her, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, Prince William, the Duke of York, and the Earl and Countess of Wessex are reported to have arrived at Aberdeen today. Prince Harry is also reported to be travelling to Scotland. Princess Anne was already there. Earlier this week, the 96-year-old Queen of Scots appointed Liz Truss to be the new UK Prime Minister on Tuesday, where she was photographed looking frail but smiling. Operation Unicorn, the code name for the plan in Scotland, leaked some time ago, indicates it is likely her coffin will temporarily rest at the Palace of Holyrood House, having been taken by road 2 days after her death. Plans are also thought to include a ceremonial procession along the Royal Mile at the St. Giles Cathedral, where the service is expected to be attended by the royal family before a 24-hour period of lying at rest, which will be open to the public. The coffin is then likely to be moved to Edinburgh Waverley Station to travel to the royal train overnight, arriving at London St. Pancras the next morning. From there, it is thought it will be taken to Buckingham Palace before the big ceremony procession in London, planned for D+5 D-Day plus 5 days of the 10-day funeral plans, which will see the Queen lying in state. Today, I'll be joined by Ruth Watson later on. Hello, Ruth.
Hello, Anne. What a day for you to be starting your experiencing at Broadcasting Scotland. It's a remarkable news day. Remarkable news day.
Yeah, very true. So, Ruth, what's your response to this? What's your thoughts on this? The very sad news, and also Operation Unicorn.
Well, I think that we are witnessing a moment of history. I saw somewhere on social media earlier that Queen Elizabeth has reigned for 30% of US history. Now that puts it into some perspective, doesn't it? And I think that we always have to be mindful that there is a family grieving the loss of a mother and a grandmother. And, that's always a very sad moment and a sad time. Obviously, she was a remarkable figure on the global stage in terms of international democracy and international diplomacy. And I think that it probably also is a time of significant change. Looking at the world and the changing perspective of the world. I think that this is a moment in time which will be noted. But we were looking at an individual who came to the throne in 1953 in tragic circumstances, as always happens when there's a royal handover. As we now have King Charles, who became king because his mum has died. She became king because her dad died, and I think that we can't ever quite lose sight of that. So the world moves on, but there's a big gap for some people, and whatever your views on the constitutional arrangement of having a monarchy, it cannot be in any way ignored, the fact that this is an individual who gave 70 years of her life, in service.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ruth. And also for some of our viewers who don't understand what Operation Unicorn is all about, do you have anything on that as well?
So it's actually one of those situations where every journalist, I've worked for the BBC for a number of years, and practically on my first day, I was told, there's a big folder so that if a light ever comes on, if this light ever comes on, go and get the big folder, because these are the instructions of what to do, because it means that a senior royal has died.
Yeah.
And so this is something which journalists across the British Isles have been preparing for decades. There's a big book, and there's several code names within that. And there was an article in the Guardian newspaper several years ago explaining, I think Operation Tower Bridges or Operation London Bridges down would be if the Queen had passed away in London, and it was Operation Unicorn if she passed away in Scotland. So I think that what that does mean is that the eyes of the world will very much be on Scotland and her connection with Scotland. And I live in just a few miles from Glamis Castle, where her mother was born and where her sister was born. So it does very much have a close connection to Scotland. And from reports that I hear in the village of around Balmoral, the villages there, that she genuinely feels a very close connection to Scotland. So in some ways I did find myself wondering when she was spending more and more time up in Scotland, just perhaps something that this was a place where she wanted to be, perhaps to feel more close to her mum and to her sister as she was coming to the end of her life.
And before we also move on to more news, this news comes right after the new Prime Minister has talked about, all the other news of what's happening on the electricity bills and all that. And what are your thoughts on the same? She's a new Prime Minister coming up with new policies on, everything else that is affecting all of us. It's such a big moment for all of us in Scotland, in the UK.
I think the world keeps on turning, and the misery that is being inflicted on people by this government will continue to get worse. I think that for many people, this will be actually a moment of stark moment for them, because for many people, the Queen and the royal family represent stability, and we're living in a time of change, and pretty awful change. And for many people, their lives are getting worse, and significantly so, and frighteningly so. And I think that losing such a significant figure as Queen Elizabeth, I think that will be something which, for many people, find quite destabilizing. I am continually horrified by just how much worse the Conservatives and their party of government gets, and I'm not sure that their worst excess will be tempered in the coming weeks, to be honest.
Right. Thank you so much. As we will move to the next item, which is Liz Truss announces energy cap plan. Liz Truss will freeze energy bills at an average of £2,500 a year for 2 years from 1st of October, and has pledged to tackle the root causes of the problems in the UK energy market through plans to increase supply, including the resumption of fracking. The government will fund the scheme to reduce the unit cost of energy through increasing borrowing. The cost is likely to be about 150 billion, although Whitehall sources said estimates would not come until physical statement from the Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng expected later this month. The so-called energy price guarantee will limit the price suppliers can charge customers for unit of gas. Truss will temporarily remove green levies worth about £150 a year on average from household bills. Her scheme will cover England, Scotland, and Wales, but something similar is expected to follow within Northern Ireland. Truss also announced schemes she said would increase energy resilience, including launching a new round of about 100 new oil and gas license lifting in moratorium of fracking for shale gas, as well as accelerating new sources of energy supply, including nuclear, wind, and solar. There has not been much detail published about the plan, how much it will cost, or how it will be paid for. Most concern remains on the impact of energy prices on small businesses who have seen energy costs rise by 300 or more in some cases. Following the pandemic, many small businesses have been losing money, and the increase of energy costs now threatens their ability to continue trading, putting jobs at risk, further exacerbating the cost of living crisis. Responding, Professor Karen Turner, director of the University of Strathclyde Centre for Energy Policy, said, "This plan offers some much needed reassurance to UK households, businesses, charities, and public sector organizations such as schools going into the winter and beyond that into what is likely to be an extended period of uncertainty on global gas prices. Crucially, it will also play a key role in consumer confidence and cushioning the recession pressure." It does, however, it does not involve the further increase in prices. That is, this intervention focuses on reinventing the problem, getting a whole lot worse in the short term, and only sets mid to long-term plans for ultimate bringing prices back to a normal or even sustainable level. It is particularly concerned that the package does not include more targeted help for those on the lowest income and/or those energy bills constitute a large and growing share of their total spending. Here, the package put in place by the previous Chancellor Sorry. It seems like I have lost my key. So, so Ruth, yeah, I had lost you for a minute. We are talking about all this new news about energy and gas prices.
Where to start? It is a sort of endless rage to me, quite frankly, that we're in this situation. I think it's 3% of our gas comes from overseas. So the crisis in Ukraine caused by Vladimir Putin and the crisis that is brought about, the energy crisis brought about by Vladimir Putin, which is being felt across the EU, It's not the crisis that is being felt here. The reason that we have a crisis in this country is because the Tories, in fact, I think Liz Truss was behind it, sold off the storage and the energy capacity storage several years ago, thinking somehow that would save her money, save or make money for somebody somewhere down the line. It's always the case. Follow the money. So we have got an energy crisis because the Conservative Party chose to sell off the storage capacity. Now, I think Italy, if I'm right, Italy has about 6 months capacity. I think the UK's got several days. That's why we're in this problem. So Scotland's gas is pumping down into England and is being being sent overseas to the EU because we don't have the capacity to store it, and then it's bought again. That would be bought back again from the EU on the market, on the sort of the general international market at international market costs. That's why our gas is so much. For some reason, bizarrely, the electricity that we have, much of which comes from Scotland's renewable sector, the cost for electricity is being pegged to the cost of gas. So we're being fleeced royally. The energy companies have got billions of pounds in excess profits that they're shoveling into their pockets faster than you can shout wheelbarrow. And somehow we are expected to give them 170 billion, or I think it's 100 billion, they've got 170 billion of profits, and we're being asked to give them basically a loan of 100 billion to sell the energy back to us to make more profits, and we're the suckers that are being expected to pay for it on some massive PFI scale over the next goodness knows how many decades. I mean, it's like a form of indentured servitude to generations. It is beyond folly. And in terms of the relief that that Liz Truss, Prime Minister Truss, is announcing, it doesn't come to cutting it for businesses. It doesn't come anywhere, not even a fraction of it goes. The whiff of hope that businesses had is dissolving. I'm speaking to people who are senior figures within the food and drink sector who are talking about the entire collapse of our economic structure. And none of this when you look at what the food and drink sector, for example, is saying, none of this comes anywhere close to addressing that. So we have a prime minister who spent many years working as an executive with Shell, bailing Shell out, for some reason throwing Amazon a lifeline, and we're paying for it. I mean, it just, I can't even begin to express to you how angry I am that this is happening. We've got nations across Europe who are doing very well in dealing with what is a really difficult situation. They're looking at having an EU-wide cap on the situation, on prices, and the UK is yet again running around trying to make money for rich executives. It is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And if you look at the Financial Times and you look at their little chart of where the economy is going, noting, for example, that the pound is plummeting to its lowest level since 1987, then actually most of our woes started on the 31st of January last year because of Brexit. All of the people that I'm speaking to within business are telling me that this is a crisis that has been brought about by Brexit and by utter greed. It is even begin to explain to you. The rage I feel when I'm speaking to people in the street, punters in the street, my neighbours, the folk who work at the supermarkets, and they're telling me that they're not having the same food put into to the food banks. And why do we have food banks anyway? Now we're talking about warm banks. The sixth richest nation in the world, because we've plummeted down below India's economy, and all of this is a self-inflicted nonsense. I needed to get that off my chest. I'm very, very angry.
I understand. Yeah, because most people are also concerned about the same, because they don't understand how the longer plan looks like, as well as what
There
next
is no
if you're
plan.
running a
There is
business.
no longer plan. There is no plan. That's the thing. There is no longer plan. You've got Edwina Curry telling people who can't afford to put their radiators on to put a bit of foil behind the radiators. It's just they are so out of touch they don't even begin to understand the misery that is being caused.
Right. Businesses and jobs.
Well, I mean, what are you supposed to do if you can't afford to run your business? Then how are you supposed to keep the jobs going? I mean, that's what I mean. When I'm speaking to business, they're telling me that I'm talking about business leaders. They think that we're on the brink of having an entire collapse of the economic structure that underpins the economy. Because the farmers can't, for example, I mean, it's not just farmers, obviously, but for example, the farmers can't afford to get the diesel. They don't have because diesel shot up. They don't have the workers to get the food out of the ground. They are struggling to get hauliers and to get the lorry drivers to get the food down to the shops. And a lot of the shops at other outlets can't. So for example, if you're looking at pubs, if you're looking at fish and chip shops, the price of food has gone up 3 times, 150% for oil, 50% for fish, for example. You're looking at heating costs that have gone up more than 3 times, and it's due to get another hit in October. So how are they supposed to keep going? And a lot of the time, these small businesses are the ones that keep families. An entire family will be employed by the one business, and these are the places where youngsters, people who perhaps are needing like a wee part-time job to keep themselves perhaps while the kids are at school, those jobs are going to disappear. So we are talking about a really serious breakdown in society. We're talking about the police are looking for extra money because they think that there's going to be so much more crime kicking off because people are going to be desperate and they're going to start robbing food out the shops. I mean, it is absolutely disgraceful what's happening.
Right. So, so moving on to the response from Professor Karen Tanner, Director of the University of Strathclyde Centre for Energy Policy. He said, it is particularly concerning that the package does not include more targeted help for those in the lowest income and those in energy, those whose energy bills constitute a large and growing share of the total spending. So Liz Truss reveals campaign donation of £100,000 from wife of ex-BP executive. Liz Truss raised more than £420,000 in donations for her successful Conservative leadership bid, with the biggest single contribution made by the wife of the former BP executive. Contributions to the new Prime Minister's costly campaigns were disclosed just minutes before she revealed details of her long-awaited plans to tackle the spiraling energy bills. The average donation Truss received was worth £20,000. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak raised £449,570 for his failed leadership campaign. A spending cap of £300,000 was imposed by Conservative Party Central Office at the start of the contest. Truss registered 21 donations to her campaign in cash and transport costs. The largest single sum came from Fitriani.
Where does it take him out of?
Sorry? The wife of James Hay, who has a luxurious goods empire and is a former BP executive. She gifted Truss £100,000. Other supporters include the Tory peer Greville Howard, whose Westminster townhouse was used by her campaign team as a headquarters. So, Ruth, on this story, what's your take? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, first I must apologise in the background. It's blowing a hoolie outside, and I have a very drenched cat that's come in that's complaining. So if you see disruption in the background, there's an angry black cat somewhere stalking me. So this is yet again. I mean, it just seems to me as though this was the whole point of Brexit. It's Brexit has been a project in which sort of corruption can hide in plain sight, and the lining of pockets continues unabated. So it comes as no surprise to me that Liz Truss suddenly, magically, is turning around and saying, "Isn't it terrible that the Labour Party did nothing when they were in power to improve the whole energy supply issues?" And suddenly seems to be blaming Keir Starmer when, after 12 years of the Conservative Party being in government, they're having to face up to their appalling inaction. But it's just that I don't even begin to understand how come people aren't seeing it for what it is. How can we have a situation where we've got the Prime Minister bringing out policies that will further line the pockets of people who are making a huge amount of money, who don't actually pay for the oil or gas that they extract. They just pay for the licenses. And so all of our mineral resources, all Scotland's mineral resources, are heading down in an almost direct channel to the politicians that are making the policies. I mean, if this was happening in Argentina, the Philippines, people would be saying, "Oh my goodness, this is so corrupt." But because there's this amazing veneer of respectability, we're supposed to respect this process. It's. I mean, one of these days, I hope that there's a judiciary that actually genuinely looks at corruption in British politics, Westminster politics. And I think that for me, it just endlessly seems to be this is why Brexit happened, is so that the whole process that the European Union was going through to try and remove this kind of blatant corruption from public life. To me, the cash cow looked like it was going to be removed, so they removed themselves from the cattle herd that was going to be, that was going to be sort of like clean. I don't know, the sheriff that was going to be cleaning up Dodge, because they are the cowboys. It is disgusting, and the fact that they're talking about shale and it's the thing is, it's just all such sound bites to appease people, because none of these projects can happen overnight. We need issues. We need a solution tomorrow. We need a solution today. There's people who can't eat. There's people being cold who can't afford to wash their clothes, can't afford to shower their babies. Today, you're talking about unleashing fracking and opening up new pipelines. You're talking about 6 or 7 years down the line, and it's not even going to happen in Scotland, because the fracking issue is reserved to Scotland. Although I know that the Tories now are looking at getting rid of the Scottish Parliament, and that many years ago I was hearing quite strong rumours that there'd been a side room at a Tory party conference, which was talking about ways in which to get rid of Holyrood. And at the time, I was foolish enough to think, "Oh, that's so silly, they would never do that." And now I can see that's exactly what they're coming for, and every ounce of mineral wealth they're going for as well. So it doesn't surprise me that this is happening. What does surprise me is that the whole shower of them aren't all locked up in jail for corruption.
Well, okay, good. Yeah. So meanwhile, SNP MPs calls for. All right. So please stay with me, Ruth, as we look at the next news item on UK government admits 50 farms were in VIP lane for the test and trace contracts. The UK government has admitted that 50 farms were put in a priority lane for securing test and trace contracts worth billions, including Immensa, the company involved in a scandal over 43,000 false negative results. The UK Health and Security Agency reveals the names of the 50 companies of the Good Law Project, the campaigning organization that successfully changed the government's VIP lane for personal protective equipment, PPE, contracts in the courts. The name of the companies and organizations in the list range from university such as Oxford and big medical suppliers such as Roche and Innova to much smaller, sometimes recently established companies. These include Imnesa, incorporated in May 2020, which is under investigation by UKHSA over one of its laboratories, which gave at least 43,000 people potentially false negative COVID-19 test results. The UKHSA disclosure does not reveal how companies and organizations were referred to the priority lane, but it is likely to raise questions about whether the process was similar to the VIP fast track that existed for ministers and senior officials to recommend companies to offer PPE. An email sent by a senior civil servant in 2020 said there was a dictated email address to offer for offers to supply PPE from people who had been recommended by a minister or senior official. It was later publicly confirmed that a VIP lane or high priority route existed for PPE offers where more initial attention was paid to those companies that were referred by the ministers, MPs, or officials. The same email sent to Max Kandaff, a cabinet officer procurement director, also referred to COVID testing, saying there was a separate dedicated email where offers would be triangled. He added, if they come from a minister or private office, then please put fast track at the beginning of the subject line. Is this more evidence of corruption, Ruth? What do you think?
What do you think? I think. I mean, honestly, if it walks like a pig and snorts like a pig, it's pretty much a pig that's got its trotters in the trough. It's and you're looking at Dido Harding and her £37 billion, £37 billion failed track and trace system. What happened to that? Where did that money go? £37 billion. You're looking at Michelle Mone, the Tory peer, whose home was raided earlier this year by the police in an attempt to find documents linking her PPE firm and the alley corruption there. I mean, I don't know about you, but I still have got some lateral flow tests that have got the name of somebody's barn as the address of the business there. So, and at the time, there were people coming forward who've got experience in sourcing PPE, who had the experience to, who actually had the equipment that was needed, saying that they were being, that they were offering their services and they were being fobbed off, and yet Tory chums or cronies or donor cronies were handing like these kind of little bin bag liner things to people, and that were absolute nonsense. And now we're having to pay millions to have loads of the stuff that was just junk incinerating. So I mean, I think that the difference between the way in which the Scottish government and Westminster government went about this was very, very different. And of course, you won't see that being reported in many places. But the Scottish government just went on and did the job. So they needed a track and trace system. They spoke to the NHS. The NHS dealt with it. They needed hand sanitizer. All of our distilleries just went, you know what, here, we'll make you hand sanitizer. It was just the Scottish government put its shoulder to the wheel and is internationally recognised as having a good response. Now, you hear folks saying, "Oh, but Boris was brilliant. He got the job done. We got the vaccinations out early." The reason that the vaccinations came out early was because they had to ask for special permission from the World Health Organization because the infection and death rates were so high, and the World Health Organization gave special dispensation for the vaccine program to be rolled out early to try and stop deaths and to try and stop Plague Island from sending out more people into the world with this dreadful disease. So it is yet again a situation where we are being gaslit with gas that we're supplying and paying for, and somebody else is taking the profits for. It is yet again a day where I am fulminating. It is disgusting, and I really hope that one end up with an inquiry which truly holds them to account. And good on the Good Law Project for being so diligent as to hold on to the story and not let it disappear, because you will not see very many journalists attacking the source or going for the source of the troublemaking, which stops at number 10 Downing Street.
Oh, thank you for your input there. Majority of Brexit Leave voters support free movement and trade with Europe. A survey by the London School of Economics, LSE, show that well over 50% of both Remain and Leave voters show support to a new deal with Europe that includes freedom of movement and free trade 6 years on from the EU referendum. The SNP's Europe spokesperson, Dr. Philippa Whitford, MP, said the figures show low public opinion had shifted following both Brexit and warned that both Labour and the Tories had their heads in the sand over the disastrous impact it is having on livelihood. Commenting, Dr. Philippa Whitford, MP, said, Brexit was always a bad idea, but these new figures show very clearly that public opinion is shifting as a result of the UK government's terrible handling of Brexit, which is disrupting people's lives and damaging livelihoods. Already, Brexit is making us poorer and is exacerbating spiral cost of living crisis facing people in this country. Moving on, White House wants. Yeah, Ruth, I see you back. So before I move to White House, and we've just heard from Dr. Philippa Whitford
Well,
about
I mean,
yeah.
you know that this is just going to be getting,
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to be me getting angry again. So, 72% of people in Scotland, when polled, say that they think that Brexit is a mistake. That's 10% more than voted to remain. So I think it's pretty clear that the mandate, when you look at the way that people vote, when you look at the PR, those people who do not vote for the SNP or for the Greens, there's many people in the Conservative Party and the Labour Party and the Lib Dems who wish to see us returning to the EU because they have a brain in their heads. It makes economic sense. Even Tim Martin, the odious Tim Martin, who's the Weatherspoons director or CEO, who sort of campaigned vigorously for Brexit, was asking for tariffs to be removed. Did he not understand at any the single market was about? The problem is that we have now got a number 10 cabinet stuffed full of the ERG, the European Reform Group, who brought about Brexit. We have got a Tory party now that is led by the furthest to the right ideologues, the most anti-European of the Tory party. So there is no way that they are going to be doing anything to reverse the catastrophic damage that has been done. One of them was even tweeting, I can't remember the name of the gentleman, the new one of the new secretaries, was tweeting about the amazing success of a trade deal with Mongolia 2 days ago or yesterday. He was saying what a success that was, because we could now sell more chicken, Scottish chicken, to the KFCs in Mongolia. There are 10 KFCs in Mongolia. It's not going to make the Scottish chicken farmers jump up and down with joy. So it is just yet again another disaster. Everybody who understands the economics of the situation now recognises that Brexit was a complete catastrophe. Most people in Scotland already knew that, and that's why they didn't want it to happen.
But still, do you think there's any more hope, on the same, considering, that everybody is, coming into terms with that, with the Brexit? And
well, that's the problem. I don't think that everybody is coming to terms with that. I think that more people are coming to terms with that. I think that the vast majority of people in Scotland are completely in accordance with returning to the EU. I think the majority of people in England perhaps still are not there yet. I think that you're finding that places like Wales and a lot of the high leave places where they were lied to, as the other day, I think he's now the former whatever the Viceroy of Wales is now, I can't remember his name, Alan somebody, I think it is. He admitted that he basically lied to the Welsh people about Brexit. So I think more people are coming round to it, but I do still speak to quite a number of people who were Leave voters who still think that Leave was a fantastic idea and the Tory party is doing a good job. So there still are, I mean, they do tend to be tourists coming up here on holiday, but there are still people out there who they get their news from the Daily Mail, and they just followed Rupert Murdoch's agenda, and the media that we're seeing basically broadcasting from the TV and radio outputs coming from London are basically so supine that we don't hear very much of a challenge in that. So there are some people who still don't understand why their lives are getting worse. But I think more people in Scotland are waking up to it. And those people who perhaps were not politically aware or who were not so disturbed as to want to make change, now their eyes are very open. There's a lot of people face losing their homes. A lot of business people who face losing their homes. They put their trust in the Tory party. And I think that they are recognizing the depth of the betrayal.
thank you for it. White House warns truce over efforts to undo Northern Ireland Protocol. The Biden administration has sent Liz Truss a message on her second day in office warning against efforts to undo the Northern Ireland Protocol. The warning came from the lectern in the White House briefing room, where spokesperson Catherine Jean-Pierre was asked about new UK Prime Minister's first phone call with President Biden and whether the US-UK trade deal was discussed. Northern Ireland was not mentioned in the question, but Jean-Pierre brought it up anyway. There is no formal linkage on trade talks between the US and the UK and the Northern Ireland Protocol, as we have said, but efforts to undo the Northern Ireland Protocol would not create a conducive environment, and that's basically where we are in the dialogue, Jean-Pierre said. Not conducive to a trade deal is the administration's established position on UK government's threat, spearheaded by Truss to pass legislation negating part of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The protocol is the UK government's deal with the EU on how to square Brexit with an open border between the two islands established by the 1998 Good Friday Peace Agreement. The US helped broker the agreement, and there is adamant bipartisan opposition to any move that might jeopardize it. Liz Truss determined support for Ukraine's defense is welcome in Washington, but her position on the protocol is seen as the majority irritation in bilateral relations. Scotland leading the way on affordable green housing is our next. But before I do that, Ruth, I see you've got an input there. The Northern Ireland.
The Northern Ireland Protocol is something which is, so you basically have got a government that is looking at two international treaties that have been signed and which need to be respected, because if they aren't respected, then they're breaking international law. And despite what the previous administration said, you cannot break the law in a specific way. It's like only being usually, it's you don't lose your virginity just a little. You don't break the law in just a little way. So I think that Liz Truss is sort of like skirting around that territory, shall we say. I think that a lot of this is actually just the gamesmanship that the Tory party seem to do with the DUP. I suspect that even they realise that all their dreams of international deals will be so damaged if they break these, if they break the Northern Ireland Agreement, or the EU, the border in the Irish Sea. So I think that they know that they can't do it, but they just sort of like try and do a little dance of temptation to keep the Unionists in Northern Ireland happy. And I don't think, because the evidence shows that actually more people now are looking at the reunification of Ireland as being a more serious, they trust that more than they trust the British government. I think the UK government, Westminster, has shown itself not to be an honest broker. And I respect very much Biden's stance. I think that had Trump still been in power, this would have been thrown to the wind in Ireland. But even then, I still don't know if they would have been, Westminster would have been mad enough to go down there, because it would have been so damaging to their international reputation for the international agreements that they're trying to write. Nobody wants to sign a deal with somebody that's not an honest broker. So I think that there's a dance being done. It's a dangerous dance, but I think it's a dance being done to appease the likes of Arlene Foster, and perhaps to try and keep their right of centre voter base in Scotland, because losing a huge amount of votes, and the Tories are basically anybody who's left of centre, many people who are left of centre, but want to be part of the United Kingdom. They have a choice of voting, Lib Dem, Labour, or Tory, and many of those people are now going to the Tories because they're unionists before they're left of centre. So a lot of the left of centre vote kind of going to the SNP or the Greens, or they're just not voting. So the Tories, I think, recognise it's a game that they're playing that is one of expediency, and I think that they are doing this because they think that they will get votes in Scotland from people who are trying. They just want somebody who's singing on the same song sheet. I don't think they actually mean it. I think it's just another one of their cons.
So, yeah, thank you very much. We're now going to go to Ukraine update, day 197. Ukraine has recaptured several settlements in the northeastern Kharkiv region as part of the surprise counterpart of President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced. This week, we have good news from Kharkiv region, he said in his Wednesday evening address, adding that now is not the right time to name those settlements where the Ukrainian flag has returned. An official representing the Russian-controlled Donetsk People's Republic said on Tuesday that Ukrainian forces encircled Balaklia, an eastern town situated in Kharkiv, the Russian-occupied Izium. U.S. intelligence says Ukrainian forces are making slow but meaningful progress on the battlefield. The Institute for the Study of War, ISW, a Washington-based think tank, reported on Wednesday that Ukrainian forces probably captured Vabivka, less than 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers northwest of Balakia on Tuesday, citing geolocation images posted by Ukrainian soldiers. Shelling resumed near Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant on Wednesday. Ukrainian officials accused Russian forces of firing on the city of Nikopol across the plant, as well as Anahoda, where the power plant is located. The UN has accused Moscow of forcing Ukrainians into detention camps and even prisons via Kremlin-directed filtration program and removing children from the war zone to hand over to adoptive parents inside Russia. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thompson-Greenfield, told the council that estimates indicate authorities have interrogated, detained, and forcibly deported between 900,000 and 1.6 million Ukrainians to Russia since late February in an attempt to prepare for an attempt annexation. The body of a UK aider who was captured by Russian proxies in April has been handed to Ukraine with possible signs of unspeakable torture, according to the country's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba. Paul Urey, 45, was Warrington, Cheshire, was captured along with another UK national, Dylan Healy. Vladimir Putin has threatened to tear up a fragile Ukrainian grain deal, allowing exports from the Black Sea. During a bellicose speech at an economic conference in Vladivostok, Putin also threatened to cut off all deliveries of gas, oil, and coal to Europe if they imposed a price cap on Russian energy imports. Well, that's what we have for you today. I don't know, Ruth, if you have final views, opinions to share.
I would just like to say thank you so much, Anne, for being so professional and coming on. It was your first time coming on to present the program tonight. You were thrown in at the deep end, and I really look forward to seeing you and being on the program with you many more times to come, because you took a difficult challenge and you have worked your way through it. So it is my pleasure to have been on with you. It's a strange day to be a news day today, and it's one which I'm sure many of us will remember. I'm sure that I will remember it for many reasons, but one of them has been the pleasure of meeting you. So thank you very much for having me on this evening.
It's really nice to meet you too, Ruth. And thank you for the patience despite the technological hiccups, and hope everybody else at home as well. Well, that's all from us this evening. And before I go, I just want to remind you that Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who's donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you so much. Our programs will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of adding 10,000 new subscribers to enable us to employ staff and to make more programs. And for all who are watching because of my invite, you are welcome to explore and check on our website and more. So from me, it's good night and thank you for watching.